6:20. Wow! I'd like to call this meeting March 9th, 2022 to order. I'd like to start with invocation, pledge of allegiance.
Father, we thank you for your love and your grace. Thank you for this town, each family represented here. We just continue to pray for our country, our leaders, and the people of Ukraine. We thank you for what is going to be happening tonight for our new chief of police, Mike Vino, who has served this town for more than 20 years. His service, I believe, is the longest on record for this town for any official or any position. We're so thankful for him, for our first responders, for our police force. We ask that you would continue to bless and protect them as they protect us. Now, as we go into this meeting, we ask for kindness, understanding, and for people to be able to speak on how they feel and still be able to bring things, and that the council would have an open mind and be able to govern with discernment. We give you all the praise in Jesus' name.
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Noble?
Here.
Councilmember Cummings?
Here.
Councilmember Roberts? Vice Mayor Zamitis?
Present.
And Mayor Howell?
Present.
I'm sorry, Manager Cavalli?
Here.
And Attorney Mora?
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, this time, are you going to administer the oath? We'll be doing that. Okay, so we can take that, please.
Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Mike Vino,
I, Mike Vino,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Florida
and the state of Florida
and the charter
and the charter
and the code of ordinances of the town
and the code of ordinances of the town
of Kenneth City
of Kenneth,
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
domestic or foreign,
domestic or foreign,
and that I will faithfully perform
that I will faithfully perform
all the duties of the chief of police
all the duties of the chief of police
upon which I'm about to enter.
on which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Pause for just a minute to get some photographs.
Yay. Robert, ask him where
Yeah.
his family. Let him introduce his
Yeah,
family.
absolutely. Mayor, you introduce.
Careful with the cord.
Right.
Oh, one more. Thank you. Congratulations.
Oh, yeah. My wife, Jennifer Vino, my daughter, Blake, my son, Blake, and my
Hey, Mike, I just want to say congratulations very much. well deserved, and I want to say Pete did a wonderful job. I think that he's finally bringing our town around and choosing good leadership. And I mean, it was a collaborative effort, I'm sure, and I think that it's going to be a great team going forward. Actually, I want to thank both of you and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Council member, city manager, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
We're gonna take just a real quick break while he can take care of his family, if there's any more pictures or anything. Then we'll be ready to roll.
It's great when you can see at some of our events, the entire family was out there. Actually, several of our steps up there as well.
It was a great event.
Great
event. It was a great event.
Absolutely, yeah. My mom's like Coach too, tons of shares, everybody loved it, yeah, heard great things.
Good to hear.
Yeah,
We're excited about our next couple.
that's what I posted too, I was like, I'm looking forward to the 4th of July there.
Now we got a standard.
Keep going the bar higher. Exactly. Keep the bar higher.
Actually, we have Powell with the drum corps coming out for our flag ceremony on the 19th too, so that's going to be exciting.
That's
Very
cool.
That's March 19th.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to start the meeting again, and the first thing I need is a consent for the agenda. I need a motion to accept it.
Motion to accept consent agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, then right now, we'd like to open it up to public comment. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say this evening?
And again, please fill out that slip too.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Tim Shovey, 4702 Lake Charles Drive, Kansas City. We live on the corner of Lake Charles Drive and 47th Avenue. It's a three-way stop sign. And constantly cars are just traveling west on 47th Avenue are constantly running that stop sign. Probably 70% of the time. And it was funny, a couple weeks ago, I had to call AAA out to replace my battery. He's in the process of changing the battery out. He goes, boy, that's 3 out of the 4 cars that just ran that stop sign. So I know there's numerous places that the town has placed an extra vehicle, just sits there for a week or so. And just maybe a thought, if you don't have officers available to, for that area, at least maybe park the vehicle there for a week or two, and hopefully that might reduce it. My biggest concern is safety of children. There's a few children in the neighborhood, and I'm just concerned if the ball goes in the street and the car just goes by without stopping. I just hate to see it happen. Then I guess the state probably gets most of the money from the ticket revenue, but at least the township will get something for it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. We have anybody else who'd like to make public comment? All right, at this time, I'd like to close public comment and go to resolution to cancel the March 22nd resolution. The election.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Town of Kenneth City Resolution number 2022-02, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Kenneth City, Florida, canceling the March 15, 2022 municipal general election as authorized by resolution number 2021-10, providing for Councilmember Bonnie Noble and Councilmember Megan Zamitis to be seated for 2-year terms and providing for an effective date for the commencement of their respective elected terms. This is the resolution number 2022-02 by title only.
We need to open it to public comment.
Just briefly introducing it, this is really an administrative matter. Either way, we're not having the election, but it should somebody go back over the registrar of how did that work out? What happened? It's cleanest when you have an unopposed meeting, an unopposed election cycle, to have a resolution canceling that election, and that way there's no mystery as to how we ended up here. You would have been seated either way, but it's just a good administrative practice to implement. And so that's the purpose of the resolution. And with that, of course, congratulations to each of you, as you will now see to your second terms with the properly stated effective dates here. And so with that, at this point, yes, we would open it to public comment if the commission, if the council doesn't have anything else it wishes to add.
I don't think so. Do we need to vote on it? Consensus?
It's a resolution, so a roll call vote is most appropriate once public comment has been had, Mayor.
Okay. Any public comments? No comments up here? Okay.
Motion to accept.
There's a request for public comment.
Sorry, I missed that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get up and make a comment. My name's Al Devine, 6116 52nd Avenue North. The polls will still be open on the 22nd for what we're going to vote for.
We don't have any issue elections in the town of Kenneth.
Does the state have anything going on there?
There's no state election on this election for the town of Kenneth.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. So, I'm better informed now.
We handled that quite well, didn't we? Okay.
Better every year.
We need to vote then.
Motion to accept 2022-02.
I'll second.
You need a roll call vote, Annie?
Yes. Councilmember Noble?
Yes.
Councilmember Cummings?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Zamitis?
Yes.
And Mayor Roberts. Howell. My brain. Okay, I have COVID brain, I'm sorry.
All right, then moving along, special magistrate. You handling that one too, Randy?
I know, management.
Okay.
So as we're, putting together our code enforcement, program, the next step for us to do that was to go out and submit it, or to get an RFP out there for special magistrate. We did, and it was closed on Friday. We received only one special magistrate submission. Me and staff looked through, and it seems to be completely appropriate. The prices are well within range, and the submission was complete. The cost is $190 an hour for the primary, which is Brian Valdez, and the secondary, which I can never pronounce her name, Lindsay Mochinsky. So they're $190 an hour and $50 an hour for clerical assistance. We're not likely to be using them a lot. Of course, more as we're catching up, and then we'll be getting less. I worked with the finance officer to put together a line item for that, and we funded it with $5,000. So again, I believe we'll be under that for this year.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on that? Do I have any council comment? Okay.
He's just seeking consensus direction. Sorry, Manager Cavalli is just seeking consensus direction to proceed with
Okay. Yes, consensus? Yes? Yes? I also?
And if I may just add to clarify, the way that works is not every code enforcement violation will go, what Manager Cavalli is stating is not every code enforcement violation will go before the magistrate. Typically, it's used for what we would call in rem or property violations. You've got a dilapidated roof that's not getting addressed, something like that. You would take that there. Once there's a hearing held to find whether or not they are in violation of the code. If an individual or property owner is in fact in violation, they are given a date certain to comply by the magistrate. So let's say 14 days, 28 days, whatever it is. And a second hearing is held to determine did they come into compliance by that date. If not, the magistrate would then find them in violation, impose a fine. That fine would accrue on a daily basis until such time as the town has evidence that compliance has been achieved. As far as the financial side of that, there are the charges as stated for the magistrate. There's also, on our side, the prosecution of that's considered more litigation matter and outside the retainer. So the other reason that you're going to be circumspect about using that, it is not without cause. You may recover that in fines potentially, but that's not really, the fines are not aimed at the cost recovery or profit margin effort. It's really to achieve compliance.
Okay. Fund balance, account creation, again, is that you?
That is. So again, just looking for consensus. I've talked to several members of the Kenneth City Social Club, which had disbanded, as you all know, I believe about 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago now. So that being said, they had some monies left over, $250 deposit for the use of this building, and from what I understand, other fees. So as I was talking to them, I said, it might be an interesting idea, especially as, we have other people that donate funds for different purposes. But why not open up a fund balance account, with the specific reserve nature of for park amenities, especially increasing our fishing recreation and things like that. The money from this will likely be about $1,000 to $2,000, and again, it's going to be restricted just for those purposes. Again, just looking for consensus from the board.
Does the fund balance account, can you open an account that doesn't take money out of it every month?
Yeah, there shouldn't be really any cost for it. This is just another line item in your budget, so there's no additional cost.
Okay, so you just put it in a line item in the budget?
Exactly,
Okay.
with a restriction that we cannot use it for anything other than these purposes of recreation.
Okay.
I've always been in favor of expanding our recreational activities here in the town, and giving more amenities to our residents, so I say yes.
I agree. Yes.
I'm good.
I also. So we're just looking for, you got it.
Thank you.
Got it. Okay, personnel addition request.
Let me just get to that, sir. Okay, so basically what I'm asking for is, as we're, again, trying to find the right service blend for our residents, kind of as a partial step towards that would be, and I would like to see us hire a part-timer for as the recreation support specialist one position. And that person would be responsible for several things. They would be here on the weekend, and they would be here to clean the restrooms here at our community center and our police department. Again, these are kind of 24-hour operations, 7 days a week. So to clean those, to maintain the general integrity of the park, picking up some of the trash so it's not sitting there from Friday night to Monday morning. Also, we rent out this facility as well as our pavilions, gazebos, some of our park areas over here. They would be responsible for maintaining that as well. Now, that being said, we do charge a fee for that. So some of those fees, rather than paying overtime for our public works department staff, I think this would be a way to reduce those costs. Again, we're looking, at about $15 an hour for this person. Again, much less than we pay our overtime folks. And then really the most important part, why I want them here, is for recreation activities. And that means, as you know, Monday through Friday, Mike's staff, has the key to be able to hand out footballs, basketballs, quite a few of our, our sports equipment. This person would also be here for that to make sure to receive it back, and things like that. So if you look at it for the 14 hours a week that I'm looking for that person to work, we're talking about $10,500 impact on the budget. However, we don't have long-term trends on how much we'd be getting back, but if I had to assume about a third to a half of that would be coming back through the fees, for our rentals. So again, $7,000 budget for, again, extra cleaning, making sure the park having the recreational equipment being able to be handed out.
Would you like to say something, Martin?
Yeah. So, I agree with all the things that you said that should be done.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely agree with that. I also agree with there's not enough data There is no historical data. And usually before, I mean, I'm all about, this comes out of our general fund. And we set up here as a council and said we want to reduce our general fund. And so, personnel addition to me is optimizing our coverage. And so optimizing our coverage would consist of looking at how many FTEs we currently have. Is there different hours that these FTEs can work? What is the optimal coverage? When is our busy times? So, you know, for me, I would say that we really need coverage from like 8 to 8, especially coming up on daylight saving times. And so and then on the weekends, plus the weekends.
You said 7 days a week?
Yeah. And so we have 3 FTEs now, and we have an FTE that's a supervisor. And so that would be 4 FTEs in the department. And I haven't seen any data or anything. What would our optimal coverage be? You know, and it's up to us to also make sure that we're coming up with the minimal labor cost. You know, and with that, I know a part-time employee won't have benefits, but you still have your hourly cost and then any overtime they would have.
Well, they would never have overtime. That extra, when you talk about the part-time person, yeah, they would never have overtime. They would never work over. And if they worked, it would be because if it's it's like a feeding declaration or something like that, which would be doing.
Okay, I would never say never that an employee would not work overtime, you know, because weird things happen, you know. What if 2 of your FTEs get sick and they're just not here and we have a huge event? What are you gonna do? You're gonna say, oh, no, we said you don't work overtime. You know, I think that you're gonna do the best for the town. You know?
Can I ask you just a quick question? You were talking about 8 to 8. Were you talking about 8 to 8 on Saturday and Sunday also?
No, that's kind of open, you know, I don't know, you know, but I know we have to have coverage on the weekends because I walk through the park all the time and pick up trash, especially on the weekends, constantly picking up trash. You know, the trash is overflowing, the bathrooms really aren't clean. If we have a 3-day weekend, it's a mess, you know, so, you know, and then, it's undefined for me what work volumes we have. I have no idea, you know, and to just hire another person and take money out of our general fund, to me, that probably isn't good without defining what our work volumes are and where the people are needed, you know, because I'm not gonna tell anybody how to do their job, but as I see it, like I say, we have 3 FTEs. To me, if they all come in at 7, I kind of don't understand the point of that. You know, they can be spread out. I can look at, you know, federal agencies, call centers, and many agencies that spread their FTEs out to cover a span of time. And, you know, usually from 7 to 7, 8 to 8 or something. You know, so I don't know what the work volumes are, the busy work volumes. What are the coverage requirements? We're kind of going over them, and we can discuss that. You know, so in essence, I really don't think we should put on any more employees until we define these other things. And again, I think our park should be, especially daylight saving time is coming up. You know, we should have the trash picked up and stuff, and maybe over on Joe's Creek, maybe they should lock that gate at night for safety reasons, you know, because if you go walk down Joe's Creek at night, you can come in through the park and get through into Unit 12 and, you know, and our stuff has been broken over there also. So they could lock that up at night. There's plenty of work to do. So I would kind of like to get a consensus about what hours people think that our department should work, and then we'll go on. anybody else wants one, an extra person.
Yeah, just to point out too, generally, the reason why we have 3 plus the supervisor, so they can break up into 2 work groups. You know, obviously in public works, a lot of times, general standard is you want 2 people if you're working, you know, next to the ditch or something like that, you know, for heat strokes, you know, heat exhaustion, things like that. I'm not saying in every case by it at all, but that's the general idea of why we like to have that. Also, I was checking with similar cities, you know, of our size, and Bel Air, I know, you know, they have a reputation of, you know, a little different than ours. But just their parks and just their streets, again, they're, you know, relatively about our size. Just in those 2, not including facilities maintenance or any of the other things that we do, but they actually have 6 people working those. Again, just wanted to put things in context. And just one last thing to mention, I almost feel like we are already 1 FTE down, and what I mean by that is, we used to have, I forget the names, I know Williams one, and I forget what the other name was.
Ian.
Oh, thank you. And from what I understand, they were like management analysts, you know, they were doing office type things. But we hired Tori Scheinberg to handle one of them, and then the other was Dave, who basically is doing code enforcement and things like that, which was previously in the police department. So again, relatively, I think we are kind of down a little bit, at least a partial FTE.
Yeah, for the jobs, go ahead.
I think it's important as we have this dialogue and we talk about what this council is providing consensus on, to remember that we ground it in the separation of powers set forth in your charter and your code. You know, as we continue to each navigate our respective roles, it's important to remember for your manager is your chief administrative officer, and the way your charter reads, the council and none of its members shall in any manner dictate the appointment or removal of any town administrative officer or employee whom the manager or any of his or her subordinates are empowered to appoint, subject to the provisions of section 3.03, which is really your budgetary authority, where you set forth the financial allocations for personnel. And then also that the council and its members don't interfere with the administration. And I'm not suggesting any of you are doing that, but as the manager talks about staffing and time blocks, that's really a managerial decision in terms of what hour blocks individual employees work and how that's allocated. That's what you entrust him to do, and I think as he's presenting this, he's certainly trying to keep you apprised of the financial state, how those things are being allocated, and how he intends to proceed. And if he wants your guidance, that's certainly within his discretion to seek. But as far as, you know, the consensus direction that I think he's seeking this evening is more about, do we need this? I'm inclined to get this position, but I do want your insight as to how those people are allocated, what their shifts are, who's doing what and when. That's really an administrative decision that's best left entrusted to the manager and his team.
I would agree with that, but we can't be myopic either. If somebody's only seeing one point, I think it's kind of up to us to say there's other alternatives. Maybe you should go find them.
I'm not suggesting otherwise. I was simply setting forth the correct procedure as it's my duty to do.
Well, I tell you, what you're saying, Barney, I kind of agree with. What you're saying, I'm agreeing with also. But if it were me, Pete, and I was running this outfit, I believe that I would take the people that I got and put them in a position to take care of everything. After I've done that, and I know that I'm controlling the situation, then I would think about bringing somebody in and taking over, you know, if it warranted. If it didn't warrant it, why would you? You know, if you're getting it accomplished with the employees that we have, and as far as our ability to pass out our suggestions on here, I think it would behoove you to listen to what we have to say.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I don't think that throwing something out like that's not your job is really anything good for anybody to do within this organization. I think that we need to work as a team and try to figure out what the problem is. And if we all agree that we need to have coverage in that park. How we get it is your problem, okay?
Very poetic, sir.
So that's where I'm gonna leave it, but my suggestion to you is to take what people that you have and strategically place them to cover what we're talking about, And then after you do so and you learn what's going on, because you've never taken care of a park 7 days a week, have you?
Yeah, absolutely, I have, sir.
Have you? Well, tell me about it.
What do you mean? Bel Air Beach, I was responsible for all the park system for 6 years.
Did they have the same kind of budget that we have? I mean, you said a minute ago they had 6, 8 people. We can't even afford one.
Yeah, honestly, I got my direction, but I just wanted to point out one last thing. I was really hoping to use my staff for doing some extra things like, that are not part of the regular maintenance, like on Lake Charles, we're working on putting an aeration system there to clean up algae. There's a lot of projects that I wanted to increase that, again, I kind of wanted my 4 people, but I got my direction, and I'll move on.
Okay.
No, I was in agreement. I mean, I was just, what everybody was saying, I kind of agree with him, but I agree with what we're saying, and I think it, I don't know if this is an option, but a rotation or something, I don't know if that's.
But that breaks apart, having two
Breaks apart your groups.
groups of 2. And one of the other things I want, Ken, exactly what you're talking about, cats and data, we're working towards having a work order system, so I know how long everybody's doing on what, but, we're just not there. Take it back to you guys when.
It's gonna take overtime to train a new person too. When you hire somebody and bring them on, you don't just say clock in and take care of this. Our people are going to have to work and show them how to do the job, what to do, when to do it, and where to do it. And, that's gonna take time and effort. And I think that time and effort should be put into the job before a person is put into the job. So this is your duties on this particular day. This is what you do on this day. That's how I would do it.
Oh, he wants my opinion, sorry. I do. Again, in an ideal world, if this town, had more revenue sources coming in and we didn't have to worry about, our savings, rapidly depleting, I would love to just say yes and, give you your 4th person, because again, I am all about providing the amenities to our residents, and I think it would be great. Like, not many people just carry around like ping pong, equipment. So when you're at the park and you're like, wow, that would be fun. It would be nice to actually be able to go play then, or same with shuffleboard, could be said. Most people don't have that equipment, but we have that option, so it would be nice. But I do agree, with, maybe allocating somehow, reorganizing some things from our current employees to prove that, as you said, you estimate maybe 1/3 to 1/2 of, what we're laying out in labor to maybe come back to us in revenue from rentals and from the equipment, which is great, but that's where I agree that maybe we need to take the hit for a few months to get the data, to understand the trends about, is it viable for us to hire a person? And then when we do that, I think it'd be great. And then also, we had that, this is more of a question too than a statement. We had that event where we all came to dinner and there was like alcohol being served in here. I've always been under the impression that alcohol was not allowed in this building. And that is why our rentals for this building has been like non-existent. I just feel like if alcohol is allowed in this building, I can say like, we advertise that to our residents, the rentals in this building would skyrocket. And I know it's not enough to like save the town from going broke, but it would definitely provide, I would guess, thousands of dollars yearly in additional revenue that we weren't getting before. So I don't know if it's really a thing, but if it is, we could definitely make money off it.
It is a thing, and in fact, the reason why we're just finishing things up, me and Anna over the last last month or so have looked at basically our risk management, our insurance, and what they basically, so it's not covered under us. There's a charge to have alcohol here. I believe it's like an extra $75. And now they just switched.
And like a liability.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And we attach that to our special events form and our rentals.
Right.
And all of that, and where was I going with this?
That's still like me.
Well, whatever the case is, PRM, they called it the TULA program. They just changed it. I think we got an email those 2 or 3 days ago. So what you're talking about, it is.
Well, that definitely needs to be in the next newsletter, and it definitely needs to be on social media, maybe like every 2 weeks be reposted again. Because I'm telling you, once the word gets out, because that has always been the issue. People are like, oh, I would love to have a birthday party there, but I can't have alcohol, so what's the point? I mean, I'm not a big drinker myself, but this is what I've heard from other residents. So.
We had, it was really nice that.
Oh, that dinner was wonderful, right, yeah, and the little space for like a small catering or a party like or event, perfect. Yeah,
So
so-
you will see that within the next month.
Okay, and then my only recommendation, again, and this is not our decision, you know, and it's up to you, we're not the managers of the town, but maybe have them do like the dangerous 2-person tasks in the morning, and then when you have them split, then it's okay for them to maybe do some stuff at the end, so just be like, hey, you know, you're gonna do the ditch today, get that done out of the way, so it doesn't matter, or save it for the end of the day when the second person comes in.
Yeah,
You know what I mean, like if you stagger hours like they're talking about, that's just my idea, because I'm all about keeping our employees safe as well. I would hate for something to happen to one of them, especially after it'd be like, oh, we made this change now. He passed out on the side or something.
Most places have overlap.
I'm sorry.
Most places have overlap, you know, if you're covering X to X, you
Well,
know,
sure.
they have overlap, so that's when you do your more dangerous things.
That's what I'm saying.
Traditionally, public works is
Save
like
it
that,
for the-
like that,
save
I
it
do
for
know
that.
what you're talking about, other industries.
But you got 2 people in.
No, that's it, and then, right, once we start making money, then we can, you know, maybe implement the new one.
Gotta have a roadmap for them.
The next one?
Spacecraft. Who's doing that?
So Pete asked me to talk about this one. If you go to page 41 in the packet, a woman named Mitzi reached out to me recently. I don't know if you've seen around town these spacecraft. Yeah.
I do not have.
There are extra packets in the back table if anyone's interested. And also, if you would like a packet emailed to you, I can email them to you as well. And they're on our website, on the Kenneth City website always, and it's published before our meetings. But if you want to look at a visual, there are a couple of packets on the back table. So spacecraft is funded by the Board of County Commissioners as well as Creative Pinellas. I don't know if you recall in 2017, there was the BP settlement. There was an oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. And the mayors or the counties sued for part of that settlement money, and Pinellas County got some of that money, and they decided to take that money and invest it in this project. So spacecraft is, it's community art. It's, if you look at page 42, I like this blurb from Creative Pinellas. It says, the spirit of this project is to foster community through a countywide traveling art experience by transforming and activating public spaces. By bringing interactive art to the community, we encourage our residents to have a personal experience with the art. In doing so, we aspire to create a legacy of communal participation and ownership across Pinellas County, which I think is pretty consistent with the mayor's call to have more community engagement. Oh, thank you, Pete. So this is what the containers look like. There's 2 containers that they've divided into 4 studios. The green and blue one are grow and read. And so on the grow side, they teach kids how to plant a little seed, maybe grow their own sunflower. On the blue side, they get a free book. And then on the left side, you see the make and play. And make is an art studio that they do interactive art with the children, and play is musicians. They have musicians who will come and play music with the kids, teach them how to make their own Easter egg shaker. They're filling it with beans, and they have like a little jam session. So the crate is free to us. Mitzi reached out and she said she could offer us, and if you look at that map, Pete, if you stop there, that map shows all of the parks that they've visited already in our county. So they've offered make and play, and it would be at the end of May. I'm sorry, it would be the end of June to July. It's going to be here. It would be here for 7 weeks.
I believe it was May 25th, wasn't it?
Is it May 25th? All I know is that it would be here.
25th.
Yeah, all I know is that it would be here during 4th of July.
This is no expense to us.
No expense to us.
And how many times?
It's a pretty cool project.
So you said the program would be offered twice a week by the local artists and artisans for 7 weeks. So, like, is it an after school? No, they won't be in school then. Well, they want school out.
It's summer.
Yeah.
It would be their
Yeah,
summer
like
break.
The last week of May,
End of May.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they open up, you can see an example of it open there. They open it up for 2 hours and they man it with their own artist.
Yeah, it'll be perfect in the summer.
Oh, yeah.
It's, and they would partner, if the town would agreed to it, they could partner with Ken to determine where would be the best location. It's self-sustainable. I don't believe they need electricity or anything like that, so.
Do they have better days of the week, you know? Is it better to have when the, parents are working and is it better to have on the weekends, or do we have a choice?
I think it's negotiable based on the availability of artists. Yeah, but it would be a set day, a set 2 days in time every week. They wouldn't change it for all 7 weeks.
We've also talked about incorporating with some of the other things like July 4th events and just other nonprofit organizations in the community as well. You know, really making it a destination, just one.
That's cool.
If it's free, it's for me, right? So we have a consensus?
Yes.
Thank you.
So we're done with that one, spacecraft. We're ready to move on to the department reports. Pete?
Okay, so yeah, just a couple things, just keeping you apprised as I'm reconstituting again all the different departments and specialists that we need to do our work. And one of that is the need for a planner. You already know Nushin and Rodney from Florida Pinellas. So we already have an agreement with them that's valid through September 30th of 2022. So it's obviously in its last stages. I've already talked to Randy about renegotiating that contract, or that agreement, I should say, with Florida Pinellas. Again, since it's expiring September 30th, we'll get another, we've already talked about with Florida Pinellas, another 4 years going to 2026. Ongoing services. So what kind of work are we talking about? We're talking about the interpretation of the comp plan. We've already signed into an agreement with them to help us with our evaluation and analysis report, which is part of the comprehensive plan. Land development reviews, including some of the things that would go to like planning and zoning and that kind of thing. Assistance with development application and transportation analysis and data collection.
Are we one of the 8 that is there helping with the comprehensive plan this year?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we
I
are.
was hoping we were when I was listening to that.
Yeah, they've been such a pleasure to work with. And what well, there's 2 things I really like. When you look at what comparative pricing is,
They can only charge cost, or they only charge cost, and so whatever it costs for them, you know, each FTE that works on it, they only charge cost.
Their time.
Yeah, their time, yeah.
I mean, even the executive director, the highest level, which we would never really need to use, is like 100 and some, I believe it's $109 an hour. You know, anywhere else you're talking 200 plus for someone like that. So really good, and like I said, we've already been working on the ear submittal. You've heard them come in, they already know our stance on how we want, you know, mobility through the community. Again, we've already had a good working relationship, so I'd like to continue that relationship. Talking about the Kmart properties, excuse me, or I should say property, the at-home store is in its finishing its final tasks to begin its 120-day remodeling project. That's the first section that's going to open up. The second part, which is Sprouts and the couple smaller, I believe there's 2 in the plan, that's connected in the building between at-home and Sprouts. Now, that's going to take longer. That trips a lot of different reviews, like FDOT has to review, Pinellas County's reviewing for stormwater things, and that's going to take a little bit more time. But again, at home is looking at opening the stores within 120 days, I would say, from today. aerator at Lake Charles. I've been working with Justin Keller of Advanced Engineering. Really up to this point, it's been at no cost to discuss any pitfalls and efficiencies. Ken's working on getting the electrician, and the electrician will need to do permitting to get that drop there. But beside that, Ken's group is going to be doing that, on their own. They do have some experience. They've been repairing, so Ken's such a great guy. He'll pay for something the first time, but he's also going to be sitting over your shoulder learning how you do it, so you won't have to pay for it a second time. And at least that's what I've seen since I've been here. It's been pretty good. So again, we'll be doing all of that except for the electrical and the permitting for the electrical. Regarding budgeting, this is March, so this is when we really are just starting to kick off, thinking about the next year's budget. At this point, it's traditional where, the town manager, I'll be working with finance and just getting kind of an idea of what revenues we're going to be looking like. I've been going to the city manager consortiums and hearing about the labor issues and, where that's going to go, things like that. But at the next meeting, I will have Andy Tess, our contract finance person, to come here and hear it. And we'll have something a little bit more concrete now that we're getting into April. And then, again, if you know anything about what, and I know you all do, you're working at 3 budgets at any time. You're closing out a previous budget, working on the budget you are, and preparing for the next budget. So we're right in there. Administrative policies, I just updated the administrative policy. It's a housekeeping issue. What basically happens if all of a sudden I get struck by lightning, or decide I need an emergency vacation in Mexico, who's here to handle the things? And all I really did was update what was already approved by previous managers, and I believe it was shown at least to council. And that basically breaks up the 2 things, just general, and we're not talking about making big decisions, we're just talking about, keeping things running. The town clerk would handle, the town hall administrative matters, paying for the simple things that go on every day, procedural type things. And the police chief, then with his specialty, really handling all things, public safety, emergencies, code enforcement, disaster mitigation, and any of those real hands-on that you have to be out there.
So I believe our charter says, and since our city's in the charter right there, doesn't it say that the council has to approve that?
I feel like we already approved it.
Not since Pete's been here?
No, you haven't. The last time this was done, I believe it was 2019, I want to say, and it was done by Matt Campbell.
It simply states, the language in your charter is section 3.02. By letter filed with the council, the town manager shall designate, subject to the approval of the council, a qualified town administrative officer to exercise the powers and to perform the duties of the town manager during his or her temporary absence or disability. During such absence or disability, the council may revoke such designation at any time, and thereupon shall appoint another officer of the town to serve until the town manager shall return, his or her disability shall cease. So the opening language is temporary absence, but it does include subject to approval of the council, the designation has been made.
So I think we should relook at that.
So the managers just asked me whether that cancels it out. The previous manager had submitted it, they've said they can revoke. You're trying to, the way that yours was written was revising the language of it, you're submitting it, and at least one of the 4 present council members has expressed a desire to review it. If it's the will of the body to review it or revise or ask that you resubmit something different for their consideration, that's within their discretion to do. And then at which point we would either proceed on whatever you do if he's okay with that, or resubmit at a later meeting. But presently, the state of affairs is as he's described it in the correspondence that is drafted and submitted in your agenda materials.
Did you all read this? I think we should, here.
Have you seen this?
I think we should revisit this.
Can you give me some direction on what you'd like to see revisited aesthetically, or
Yeah, we need to talk about it. Did you talk about it at this meeting, set up another meeting, and what do we do with this? Fun? Brought it up, how'd you like this handled?
So all of our previous ones, the ones that I've been on, the ones that I've seen, it was the town manager, and then because the other executive, in our town really is the police chief. And so it has always been that way since I've been on council, that if the town manager was out, then the police chief would be the, acting town manager.
Actually, I saw the 2019 document, and the only thing Pete changed was he removed the manager analyst.
Yeah, it just.
That's all he
basically
did.
summed up what was there. And Randy cleaned up some of the verbiage that was a little confusing.
I think this is very confusing to read anyway, so why don't we just redo the whole thing? But I still think that in absence of the town manager, it should be the police chief.
And perfect.
It's just for clarity in the record and for the manager's purposes, that the consensus direction of the body, that we prefer to see a document that aligns with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I would prefer to have a meeting when we discuss it. I would prefer to, like, can't we just add it to next, April's agenda?
For sure, I think that the only distinction that I was making as far as procedurally is it's easier for you to be looking at something concrete and not saying that you've made a decision, but it sounds like your consensus direction is leaning towards a revised document that is cleaner in language and designates the acting chief, and that's what you'd like to put eyes on and reconsider and approve, so that way we're not putting this 2 and 3 meetings out. We could, at the next meeting, have something, administration could have something for your review. If it meets with your approval based on the general direction you're giving this evening, then by the next meeting you can bless it, and especially as it has to do with your continuity of government, the quicker we can get it in place, the better off you are.
No, I agree with that, and I'm not even sure we have all of these people. The titles that are in this, I'm not even sure we have all of them, but just clean it up. And I would say, I mean, I don't know if y'all agree with me, but have how it's always been.
Chain of command.
Yeah, chain of command, so you have, if the town manager's out, then it's the police chief, it's the acting town manager. Would you agree with that?
I would, yeah.
And of course, agreeing to a general direction at this moment is not agreeing to, and it shall be so. It is, that's what we want to see a draft of. I want to see something that looks like that.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I mean, I do agree, but I also understand from a managerial standpoint that if something were to happen to Pete, I don't think Mike would be able to walk into town hall and assume the responsibilities of the town manager. So that's, I guess, why I just wanted to meet, just for clarification purposes, about when it says, like, act on behalf of the town manager in all administrative actions. That's kind of a broad.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of a broad statement, like, you could take a vacation and fire everybody.
This isn't.
And, I'm not saying it would do that, I'm just saying, like, I feel like I just need, like, that's why I just wanted.
This isn't that foreign an idea for us, right? In the past year, we've had turnover of, okay, the moment Lynn leaves,
Right.
who's going to have all those powers on Monday morning? And that's what this document is.
Yeah.
Now, if they decide to go rogue, and I don't think any of your officials would do that, that's a whole nother issue, and then you might have recourse against those individuals. And the provision we read says you may withdraw it at any point. So if you start seeing them, then maybe you withdraw and you decide to designate who your town manager is at that time. However, in the broadest sense possible, we're just trying to establish, and a good example of this was when we knew that Steve Spina was going to be resuming his academia. We're like, okay, we need to know exactly what day Pete's the person making the call versus Steve's the person making the call. And we're just trying to put that in place, whether it's, something happens unfortunately to Pete as a health matter, or just, hey, I am completely unavailable. I came to visit a family member and I'm without communication. I cannot reach, I'm not geographically there, and decisions are having to be made on the ground.
So just to let you know, Megan, go ahead.
I have a question about all this. I've I find it interesting that we're talking about if Pete couldn't be the city manager, you know, Anna could be the assistant, or Mike could be the assistant, or whatever else. But what amazes me about the whole deal is you have 5 people up here who have been elected by the council, by the residents of Kenneth City to run this town, okay? As Randy was saying, well, your job is this or your job is that. Well, our residents don't know what our jobs are, but they do hold us responsible for what's going on in this town. And my question is, why could we not have a committee, you know, of the mayor, vice mayor, 2 councilmen, all the councilmen?
You could certainly have a committee if you changed your form of government. However, the binding documents that establish the structure of your government is such that you have a managerial figurehead in place. And that, I mean, candidly, that's the honest answer as to why not. It's because your documents that the same electorate who have voted you in, voted to approve, contemplated a form of government where there is an individual who's making those calls, and it's not made as determined by a council who will operate as department heads and the like. And so it's, in your current form of government, it contemplates continuity of a singular individual imbued with those powers. And this
Could
is
we change that and have it as a committee?
Oh, no.
He's saying we would have to change our form of government, like,
Yeah.
we used to be a strong mayor back when my mother was, right, and because we changed, we now have the town manager, we no longer have the right to make those choices and decisions.
But the people have delegated the power to you to delegate,
Right.
to identify the person you trust and put your faith in. In this case, we're talking about what would ideally and ostensibly be a very temporary event. You know, it came up from time to time, and when Manager Campbell was, hey, I'm traveling with my family, I plan to be unavailable for 48 hours. Okay, well, stuff's gonna happen here. Who do you want handling?
Right.
And that's really all we're trying to address. We're not trying to identify Pete's heir apparent, you know, for a 5-year term, or, you know, the vice president of the town. We're really just trying to have, in a pinch, we know who to talk to. And there's a continuity of government in place. And that's really, it is largely an administrative function that is within your authority to approve. The general consensus seems to be, I'd like to see a revised document that contemplates that whomever is chief of police, whether that be Chief Vino or anyone else, would presumptively serve that function in all roles, not some kind of bifurcated role as it exists in this draft.
Right.
And that's what we will present to you at the next meeting for your ultimate approval and submission. In the meantime, were something to happen between now and that next meeting, it would operate based on what is presently on the books, which is a document that resembles this format, even if the general understanding of what that document said didn't necessarily align with the text that was written, and that's a whole another thing. So that's where we stand.
Well, Megan, the only reason I said the chief of police is because of the training and the managerial experience that they have. I'm just letting you know, because I can't talk to you if we're not, you know, we're not up here.
No, I understand.
You know, that's why I say that, is just because of, you know, to me, if you're, you know, if he can run a police department and stuff, you know, with all of the officers that he has, then, you know, I think he's been, you know, God forbid, have the rest of people and
His
everything.
experience in our town
Alone.
is more than all of ours combined.
Right.
Is more, so.
I've been here a bit longer.
I don't know, what does the chief of police have to say about what we're talking about?
He's just mad.
Let's put him on the spot.
It's our thing. He just answered.
I didn't hear him.
He said it's your decision.
Would you accept that responsibility if it was cast your way?
I'll do anything that's required.
Okay.
And I feel comfortable with working with Mike too, so
Okay,
that's great.
I'm just asking questions.
Yeah.
So where are we
Just
at
testing to
then?
make
So
sure
it
we get
appears we
it
have
right.
consensus direction to submit an action item for you. at
Okay,
the
that's
next
fine
meeting.
with me. All right, what's next?
Okay, chapter 54 update. Let's see, working with the town engineer to develop a conceptual plan to provide Pinellas County traffic management, you know, that conceptual plan for, Unit 12.
Oh, I just feel like we missed the Pinellas Park. summer
We skipped the
report.
department
He's
reports.
been sitting there. He's
I'm
been patiently waiting.
Yeah.
Well, I just didn't want you to
I'm
feel
here for your
overlooked.
whole
I
meeting.
didn't want
I'm
you
here
to
for
feel
your whole
overlooked. You
meeting,
just went,
so
whoop,
I'm
right
good.
over you.
I'm good.
You're looking at 54, this is 54 under manager comments.
I
The
know.
last thing was
54
He's coming up
bonds.
in just a minute.
Okay.
And so is
I don't
You
know.
just sit
I don't know.
You just sit there. I'm just kidding. I'm more than
You were
happy
number
to
one
do
on
it.
my paper,
And I did talk to him previously, and he said he's staying here for the whole meeting, and he doesn't mind being the last one.
Okay, well, so where are we at now? Let's get back to the meeting. Where are we at?
So again, we're looking at, we have a kind of an emergency safety situation in Unit 12, with cars parked in the roundabout, basically, that it is. I've had police tell me that they've had problems getting through and had to back up, et cetera. So again, I'm working with our engineer to put together a conceptual drawing, and then we can give it to Pinellas County to do for us, basically, as they have with our signs and things like that. So we're talking about striking, signage, things like that. I checked with Chief I haven't told how to say your name. Schlatter. I'm sorry. I want to say Schlatter, but Schlatter. But he said that he had no problems with it. I talked to Chief Nino, and he had no problems with it. I do want to just do some last minute talking and coordination, make sure that Sunstar has no problems and things like that. But we're at the last minute here to do that. And again, it's a safety situation. So I'm kind of taking it out of the longer term of chapter 54. That being said, with chapter 54 also, we've assigned Tori Scheinhorn to kind of be the project lead on that. She's looking at consistency there. Just to get an idea, we'll incorporate some of the things that came through with Forward Pinellas, and of course, before we really put something to bring before council, it'll run through approval to make sure that we do everything correctly.
Do you have an approximate timeline for us for
Yeah.
that, please?
I would like to be able to give you like a progress report next month, and then in May that it's complete, and actually have something copied in front of you.
So we'll have something next month to look at then? and-
That's correct, yes. Yeah, April 13th, and then I think it's like May 15th. Right, and that's, unless you need all a workshop, then we can do that, but I don't think we do at this point. So it's something at the next council meeting.
Okay.
At the next meeting also, like I said, I'll have Andy Tess, our contract finance person. I'll also have Justin, who's done a lot of engineering work with us, to kind of update us on our watershed management plan. We've been actively looking at the design standard for the 10-year floods, seeing where our problems are, and there's a lot of stormwater related issues. So again, we'll bring that and give you maps and things so we can actually see where those are, and give you some manageable projects that we can do to again, to alleviate some of those areas. Kind of what we're using as a standard is no more than 3 inches of water in the center, the crown of your road after a 10-year flood. So what does that mean? That at least you'll have 1 lane of traffic, with a 10-year flood. Just showing you some of the things that we're using now that we're using our project management software. We'll be meeting next week, and I'll spend an hour with each one to actually implement it, make sure that they understand how to update things, use the communication tools, etc. But just in alpha order, we got Emma's working on as the project manager for employee performance evaluation program, the personnel manual, the purchasing policy, and developing a volunteer policy. And how we check. The things that I'm working on, well, no longer working on the first one, hire a weekend person, the year report, which is comp plan related, negotiate contracts with the engineer, finance, and legal, the solid waste RFP, which will be, basically today is the last day for submittal, I believe, so Monday we'll be reviewing and making our selections and analysis and selection. The special magistrate we discussed tonight. The community rating system, the 5-year cycle is next month, but that's going to take a huge amount of time. Hire a planner, we talked about that tonight through Forward Pinellas and INO local agreement. The Excella program, working on the 2022-2023 budget and really getting it being a lot more specific in there. The aerator at Lake Charles, and also add no cast net netting fishing signs at our parks. Scheinhorn's working on consistency check and revisions of chapter 54 and the website updates, including our social media, constant contact. Ken is working on those two things that I already mentioned, never mind, but the aerator and the no cast net netting, cast net fishing. Our finance person is going to be working with Bob Inzer to come with great, he was the person that came down from Florida League of Cities to talk about our, basically our finances, budgeting, basically to look forward. You know, when we talked about no additions to our operating, that was one of the suggestions that came from him. So as soon as we finish with all of our audits, then, you know, he'll be able to review that and we'll be able to get deeper. Also, the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association Award for our budget is kind of something I'm tasking him to do. That has to do with either getting our cap, you know, creating a CAFR and a bunch of things. But we'll be able to talk about that next month a little bit more. And Officer Vino, and these are just the Chief Vino. What do you call it? These are just some of the things at Town Hall that he's interfacing. He's got a lot more projects than just this. And that's the recreational capacity, Independence Day event, and also special projects. He did such an absolutely wonderful job being the project manager for our March, our last event, the Spring Festival. Yeah, again, I'm sorry, I got to do it. And also parking enforcement, everything from, we've been reviewing, you know, the books that are going to be made, the training that has to be done, and all of that. So just want to give you an idea that our plates are getting kind of full, which is really exciting. We're hoping to be able to, you know, really start cranking out these projects and showing them to you. That being said, that's enough of the town manager. So let's start with Officer Chief Vino.
You'll know why.
Come on up, officer. Good evening. For the month of February, the police department conducted traffic enforcement details specifically on 46th Avenue and 58th Street corridors, along with our daily traffic enforcement education programs throughout the town. We've also begun on 58th Street corridor, the no truck zone signage. It's been there for a little while. And we've stopped, the other day we stopped 3 semis, made contact with them, and basically we're at the education phase and giving them safer, other alternative routes, so we're not going through the neighborhood streets with a semi-truck. I also spoke to one of the logistic coordinators for Winn-Dixie, and they have no problems with rerouting their trucks to alternate roadways such as 49th Street or 66th Street that'll support those type of vehicles. And then you can just do a short jaunt on 58th Street to get into the rear of Winn-Dixie rather than going all the way through our town on 58th Street. And that's always been a concern because obviously everybody's familiar with 58th Street. You got very little shoulder, actually no shoulder there, you got a curb, and it's a narrow roadway. You get a bicyclist out there, you get you know, anybody anywhere near there, you put a semi-truck through there, it's not, you know, good results. So obviously we're working on the education part of that to get the semis on alternate roads. So I think that'll be a great improvement to 58th Street. We stopped 53 traffic violators, 38 traffic violation warnings, 15 traffic citations issued for the month. The police department also did our annual in-service training, which goes along with our accreditation model. And what that is the annual firearms qualification training, less lethal weapons, taser, OC, ASP. And then also we did training on our agency use of force and de-escalation training, which is very important. So we got that all accomplished this past month. So we're on track with accreditation and everything else we need to. The police department was also very involved in the planning and the function of the Spring Festival, which was an outstanding event. It was probably the largest scale I've seen in the town. The bounce houses, the face painting. It was great to see all our council members out there participating, our city manager, our town clerk, everybody was out there. And the feedback I got from the residents and the kids was just phenomenal. Everybody had a great time out there. So, and we're moving towards a lot more events. Excuse me. Our next event is April 15th. We're gonna have a movie in the park. We're gonna go back to trying those out, which is gonna be right over in Ernst Park from 7:30 to 9 o'clock at night. There's some brochures in the back. And then also our big event we have planned is July 4th. So we're gonna be working on that all the way up to July 4th. And that's gonna be a real large scale event. So just, everybody make sure they come out and support us, and I think it'll be a fun event. I also want to mention, we had a pretty large scale fire, which I'm sure the fire chief will be touching on, but not to speak for him, but it was a very large scale fire on March the 2nd, which bled into early morning hours of March the 3rd over at Ashford Bayside Apartments over on 58th Avenue. And it pretty much devastated one of the buildings over there. The fire department, I was called out in the early morning hours, and the fire department did an outstanding job. They had all their equipment out there. They were, did a great job fighting that. And also I want to recognize our city manager, Cavalli, because when I got the call late at night, early morning hours, I called him as part of our notification process so he can notify council members and those stakeholders, and he told me, hey, I'm on my way. So even though he lives ways away, he came out in the early morning hours on the 3rd, and he was out there walking around until about 4 o'clock in the morning with me, making sure we had all of our resources, making sure we had, American Red Cross there for the families that were affected, and so I just want to make sure that, everybody knows that, the town manager came out in the early morning hours and really supported the town and made sure everybody had the resources needed, and to me that meant a lot to have him right there on the ground, making sure things are right. That's all I have tonight. If anybody has any questions. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your hard work.
Thanks, Chief.
Sit right this time.
How's everybody doing tonight? My name is Brett Schott, I'm a fireman, with Pinellas Park Fire Department, Department of Advantage, Station 16 out back here. I'll do a quick review of our report for y'all. If you haven't noticed in the report, call volume went up significantly. More than 10% spike from last year, just inside of Kenneth City. First, mostly related around medical emergency calls. January and February especially was the record month for transports in Pinellas County ever. So it's been a really busy season for us already.
Is that a COVID thing?
It was very much related to COVID. It was related to multiple things. COVID being the primary piece of it, with the increase in the hospitals and emergency rooms. I'm sure you guys heard or read in the news, the hospital delays, all that affects us. So normally when a transport unit goes to the hospital, it's a pretty quick turnaround, less than 15 minutes time for them to bring the patient in, drop them off, get with the nurses and doctors, give them reported. We had some that were upwards of 4 hours while the ambulance sitting at the hospital. So it just creates a backlog. The other piece was nobody was leaving the hospital, so that all these people were in the emergency room, there were no beds for them to go to. You had hospitals holding patients in ERs, waiting rooms at some of the big hospitals downtown St. Pete, 80 million people at a time out in the wait. So it just created this log jam, in which actually the fire departments began transporting. We had 14 days in January and February where the fire departments had to utilize their rescues and be primary transport when they were on call on the rescue. So, and we did have to do that over the summer in 2021 in that June, July, August time when the exact same thing happened with the COVID outbreak being so big. It just affected so many people. So you can see we in the month of February, 131 total responses. Year to date for 2022, total in Kenneth City, it's 285 up from 255 last year. So more than a 10% increase just over that short time. Engine 16, they're part of running the calls from this year. Year to date, they're at 102 from where they were 71 last year, just medical calls, and a total of 118 versus 85 calls inside the town of Kenneth City. Now, some of that is, while that is related to the call line spike that we had, some of that is also related to what is, I was going to discuss, inform you all. It's called ABL, and that's GPS-based dispatch. It's one of the things that we went to over this past year. Before, the way calls were dispatched for EMS is basically every fire department we have the county broken down into grids, and you take those grids and we look at it and we go, okay, this unit's first, this unit's second, this one's third, fourth, all the way down. We run about 42 alarms down on a medical call to make sure that the computers have somebody to pick for that. What we did over this past year is change to GPS-based dispatch. Now the computer looks at the available units and picks who's closest, and it's not closest by, it's closest by drive time. So by road mapping, not just by the crows fly. And that picked up some of the calls that 16 would be closer on than maybe some other units that controlled a run card or a grid, things like that. So we were finding different places where our run cards were off. Those are called run cards, where those were off. And we made those adjustments and everything, because that's the backup system in case the GPS is out. So you do see some increase in the call volume based on that closest unit dispatch as well.
Does that help your response?
Absolutely, absolutely. It is, it's a big change. It's really what the standard should be, and it's the national standard. We didn't have the technology in the units. Actually, Kenneth City and Engine 16, we were the first ones to get the technology into our units that would allow us to utilize Wi-Fi, because we utilize some programming on our computers that we have in the trucks. The county followed suit, and the other departments followed suit with that, got everybody up to speed to where we can utilize that technology. So it's a big deal. It's a big change. I'm going to review the inspection services real quickly, and then I'll kind of go over a couple other things, if you're okay with that. So fire inspections, year to date, we're at 87. Last year we were 153. Here, inside of Kenneth City, yes. So that's fire inspections. This is all inside of Kenneth City. You see that spike? We do what is called our high-risk places first, and our high-risk ones get done every year. The apartments back there, they're one of our high-risk commercial properties in the city. So they always get done first at the very beginning of the year, and those always get done annually. What is considered a low-risk business, a convenience store, a small dress shop, something like that, is considered a low risk. Those get done every 3 years. So that's why sometimes you'll see different spikes of the amount of inspections that go on. So we're hitting, meeting the national standard, we're hitting every business at a minimum of every 3 years, but we've identified our high-risk businesses. We have about 90 or so businesses in Tennessee that we hit every year. So just so you understand why some of those items. False alarms is pretty much on par. Plans review, we've had a significant uptick so far this year from what was compared to last year, and I think you guys have actually had a lot going on here very recently where we had multiple plans. Smoke alarms. So smoke alarms is one of the things I want to talk about. We are reinstituting our smoke alarm program now that things have calmed down again. The department partners with American Red Cross. We have a grant program with them. So any resident that is unable to afford a smoke detector, can't put them up, or anything like that, we do provide smoke alarms, and we will install them for them. We provide the new smoke detectors, so they're 10-year life. There's no battery change. It just is good for 10 years, and then you replace it. It's a throwaway and you replace it. So much better system than the old, right, and never fails, it's at 2 a.m. It's never 2 p.m., it's always at 2 a.m. It's about yeah. So, but we do have that offered. They can call the fire administration 369-5803. If anybody wants a detector.
Do you mind repeating that again?
It's area code 727-369-5803. And then, we'll get, if somebody needs one, we'll get that assigned out.
Is that something I can get with your public information office to get something put out on your?
100%, absolutely. Yep, if you, call and ask for, Caitlin May, that same number, she'll have all the public information, for it. And I'll make sure, I'll get her to you right now, to you tomorrow. That way, you guys can have it, you can post it on your website. Any questions on that basic information? All right, so I know, everybody wanted to talk a little bit about the fire, I assume, want to hear a little bit about the fire. So, I didn't get together with the town manager on this today, but I did contact the state to try to get a preliminary finding before the meeting. So they have completed their preliminary finding, they found it was accidental. They're not, doing any further investigation. They don't believe that it was arson or anything, it was accidental. An air handler in that primary apartment that caught on fire. The thing about those air handlers when they're inside your house, the flues go straight up to the attic, and that's what just allowed it to go crazy. So the fire started right there, and all night we had a ventilation place to go and took it straight to the attic and allowed it to just go right across and hit all those apartments. So unbelievable that we did not have anybody that, I saw the call and I'm like, oh my God, there's gonna be several people died in this fire. And got a hold of my operations chief was on scene at the time. And said, no, we have everybody out, we have everybody accounted for. We had 2 people that were looked at for mild smoke inhalation. They were refusals. So not a single transport from any of the residents, not a single firefighter got injured in the fire. So it was really a great outcome. Thanks to Pete Lee, Chief, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. That was a collaborative effort of 7 fire departments responding to that fire. Really a really strong collaborative effort with everybody on there. Any questions did y'all have on when they asked me about the fire? Okay.
If anything, just great job to you and the other departments. I'm a coach, and I know I have a member from the swim team and 2 flag football players who all live there. And the minute I woke up that morning, I was like, "Are you girls okay? Like, how are you?" And I'm just very thankful. There's 22 families at the school too that live there. So we've had families call in. They're displaced right now. They're living at a hotel, trying to coordinate efforts to get them things that they need. But like you said, I'm just so happy that no one was hurt. And thank you for a great job.
Yeah, I just can't believe that nobody got hurt in that fire. That's one of those I was really, really afraid of. The department on October 1, we ordered a new engine, which will be for this fire station here, Station 16. Unfortunately, so normally an engine takes about 11 months. We will be getting it in the summer of 2023. We ordered it in October of 21. Unfortunately, we won't be able, I was hoping we'd have it, by the end of this budget year, in service, but that's just not the case. It's affecting everyone, we all know. Everything like that, but that's a $750,000 purchase on the new engine. That'll be coming, just unfortunately won't be until 2023, but it'll be nice. It'll be real nice.
So I'll ask the ultimate dumb question.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of updates do you get with the new engines?
More expensive metal. More expensive wiring and computers that upgrade. realistically, really, the big difference for the firefighters, I would say in all honesty, is usually in, the light packages are much better in, with LEDs, so and they're able to be a lot brighter, because they utilize less power, so they're much safer. The suspension system on the new engines, these poor guys we have a new engine up at Station 34, that we had ordered, that just came, we had ordered 2 years ago. And the suspension system is night and day. It's a broken back, old truck style on this one, and that one is nice, super nice suspension system. They can't believe how much different it is. So, realistically, the compartment configurations are the same. It's not a lot. It's just, similar advancements. There's no power we get power windows now where we didn't used to get power windows, but it's just more expensive metal, unfortunately. Yeah, more expensive metal, more expensive labor. Unfortunately, there's not these big, huge advancements.
As long as you have a comfortable seat for Santa Claus.
That's it. Comfortable seat for Santa Claus. But everything, again, and everything is built around safety. If you compare just the tank, the tank holders compared to 12 years ago when we bought that last engine. Those kinds of things are just such significant upgrades, but they're obviously significant cost upgrades. To give it to you comparatively, the engine out there cost $512,000 in 2011. The one we had before that, which was in 2001, was $251,000. So, and now we're at $750,000, and we expect, we ordered it early to get that pricing. We actually ordered it 1 day early. We put the order in at just before midnight on September 30th to get the pricing, but the next day it was up about 8% above what we paid. So, yeah, it's insane what's going on. With everybody aware of the severe weather alert coming this weekend, Friday night and Saturday morning. So there's a cold front they're calling it a stalled cold front, but it's expected to produce some severe thunderstorms late Friday and early Saturday morning. So everybody be careful. There's information on the Pinellas County Emergency Management website regarding that, but just everybody be super careful. One of the other things going on that's related to fire and EMS and police in the county. I know the chief has talked to y'all about the new CAD system, computer-aided dispatch. Just got approved today for Pinellas County, along with all the police consortium and fire and EMS to go into contract negotiations with a company called Hexagon to put together a brand new computer-aided dispatch. About a $15 million project over 5 years. So it's going to take about 2 years for us to get it in place. But you're going to see it will make significant upgrades to the system for both fire, EMS, police. The ability for the police to finally share information with everybody amongst themselves, the same way the fire departments do now. It's just a significant upgrade. So but that just happened today. The final vote, the RFP went out in the final vote today.
The last I heard, there was, at least for the smaller cities like ourselves, there would be no cost contribution or anything like that. Is that correct?
I don't believe that there's going to be an additional cost contribution to anything above what you already. I don't know what your cost contribution is currently for Kenneth City, so I can't attest to whether there would be a cost contribution. But in the meeting today, which was a public meeting, so I can talk about it, it appears that Pinellas County is going to pick up the startup costs for the first 2 years.
Yeah, that's what the county administrator said last week.
Yeah. So for the first 2 years, it will be a small user fee based on the amount of people that you have recognized as users for the operational costs of implementing. They have to they're hiring the prime group. It's called the prime board. And that's the governance board. I sit on that for the fire representative for the Fire Chiefs Association. So they'll be hiring 12 employees from the prime board itself, to manage the implementation and the, continued, work related to the, just to that CAD system. So now they're gonna come from all, you know, all that'll come in from, all the different entities, with, the county being about 40% of that cost, and then the overall, the police departments be about 60% of that total cost. Right? Everyone I've seen, it's a cost savings for any of the police departments themselves. Significant cost savings. So, do you guys have any questions for me? Anything you want to know about? Anything going on with fire, police? Obviously, you all are invited, you know, Pinellas Park Firefighters Local 2193, which is the union representing body for the firefighters that serve Kansas City. Will be doing their annual chili blaze, England Brothers Park. It is on Dave McKay Way, about 50th Street, Dave McKay Way, which is just south of 82nd Avenue. That's their annual NBA fundraiser event. And everybody is certainly welcome.
What day is that?
The 18th of March. The 18th of March. Yep, the chili place starts at 6 o'clock. Lots of chili. It's the first one we've had in a couple of years. So I think it's going to be a jam-packed, excellent event. Everybody wants to go to something now, you know. Finally out of the house, right? We're all sitting here without masks on. It's great.
And we all love chili.
And most of us love chili. I'm not a judge. I don't eat chili. There's too much. I don't like beans. Too many people put beans in chili. So I'm sorry it was a longer report. I just wanted to kind of give you.
No, it's very good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Kenneth?
I got a shorter list. But in Public Works, the last month is kind of some of the same things. We responded also. The town manager called us out for the fire support, where we did traffic management. We were able to relieve one of our officers' units and an SO at the other end, so they could go on and do other calls and stuff like that. So we were actually there, I think I got the call about 12:40, and we arrived and actually got home about 3:30 a.m. and made it to work at 7 to do our regular shift. So it's just, and that's some of the stuff we do. Not very good at this. Some of the stuff we do extra besides what we're assigned to do, our regular scheduled stuff. I know some people don't know all what we do, and like I've said before, if you like a list, I got a list of some of the stuff we do, 4 pages of things, but it's responding a lot to phone calls and, you know, residents. That every day isn't the same thing until we get to mowing. And once mowing season's here, and it's every day from Monday to Thursday for 3 individuals to mow, edge, weed, ditches, parks, and everything. So it's 4 days of 3 individuals. Plus we do, in the mornings, we do building maintenance, we do cleaning and stuff like that. It can come in at 7 so we can get everything done before opening, except for the PD, which is here 24/7. But, you know, we get up to town hall and get all that cleaned up and everything. And every morning we go through all the parks and pick up trash and make sure everything's ready to go for the day. And that's how our day starts out, usually the first hour and a half, 2 hours, Monday through Friday. So then also, you know, again, we had fun at the Spring Festival. It's starting out 7 o'clock in the morning, getting everything set up, everything getting going, and then actually get to enjoy some of the festival, you know, while it's going on, and then tearing down and a lot of hours getting ready for that stuff. But we enjoy the events. You know, it's,
You made Ken, you and your department made that very successful. Thank you.
It's everybody. You know what I mean?
But you did a great job. Thank you.
And, you know, it's seeing faces, smiling faces, young kids. only heard one kid cry, and that's because she had to get out of the bouncy house and go home. And then and again, we were working together, and everybody's working on future events, trying to prep and see what we need and stuff like that, just some of the extra stuff. And we're able to do the landscaping for the VFW monument. We did that in-house instead of farming it out or contracting it out. And we're given $1,500 budget, the landscape, and we did it for $216. And we started on a new thing of heading towards being more nature or butterfly. Everything we got was butterfly and honeybee to draw them in, and going with a little more flowering. That's pretty drought tolerant, but it's a little bit of watering. We water in for three weeks, and then it's twice a week. So, and then we do that when we do our runs. So it's trying to be efficient with that stuff. And then we also did the 55th Street ditch entryways, the old Kenneth City entryways coming in from Leland. We did the same thing, planted the same species of plants, trying to be a little more uniform and trying to, because that's been kind of empty for years. There's just a sign there. So, again, in the house, it was, I think I spent like $120, on doing both of those and getting that brought up to trying to improve some of the parks and some of that appearance. Then along on, our brush jobs are starting to pick up again, and again, that takes at least 2 people, to be able to go and do some of these brush jobs. Talk about stagger, leading into that.
Tell us what you really think, dude.
It's getting late. But anyhow, just in consideration of that's what we're trying to do is there's different talents to the people that we have and stuff that they can do, and some people you tell them to go do landscaping and wouldn't know what to do or how they wanted to start out and do it, so it takes everybody. So sometimes there is 2 people, sometimes there's 3. We don't always send 3 people to a 2-person job. And sometimes what I can see is I'm trying to take on more projects to do in-house to try to save us money and to try to, instead of paying somebody $1,500, we did it. Yeah, it was, taking into consideration the wages and stuff like that, but we're here. You guys are paying us to do a job. So I look at materials, and trying to save money here so I can use it over there on another project. And that's why we're looking at the aeration system is saving probably thousands of dollars for the town by us doing it in-house. We have to get electricians because we're not sort of license and all that, but by using our labor and our people to lay out all the hoses and the aeration system. So I'm looking at projects to do here, and by staggering some of those people that may not have the people, I need to do that as job, especially the bigger projects. And plus the 4th FTE, which is me. I try to get out in the field and try to help them as much as I can by going, like I said, by taking a person with me and going and doing a job that, that we can pick up. And now, I've got responsibilities in the office too, and getting more. So I'm not gonna be getting out to the field as much, so I'm really looking at 3 people. And it's trying to manage, keeping 2 people on a project, and then that 3rd person is sending them to a project that they can do by themselves. And that's it. So just in consideration of the staggering and covering, plus, I'm looking at I have an individual off right now. So if he is off, I'd have to have somebody cover his shift. So I feel like I'd be looking at paying overtime in order to have somebody else cover his part. And then you're having somebody that's working the 8-hour shift is working possibly 12 or 10. you know, and then, again, it's staggering if you have somebody working that in the working weekends, they're gonna have to be off 2 days during the week if you're not wanting to do overtime. So then who's gonna cover the shift during the week, the 2 days that they're off? When somebody goes on vacation, we gotta cover that, or we don't cover it. And, you know, my main objective is serving the residents of Kansas City and taking care of it, doing it, you know, the best we can for the town and providing services, so. I know I'll be getting meetings over this, but, that's just some of the things just real quick that I heard just from the meeting. It came up in my head as a previous experience. When you got 3 people, it's a little bit harder than when you have more people to cover. And there's maybe other departments that's had that problem previously, that when somebody calls in sick, they have to have an officer stay over and work overtime to cover that shift. So that's what I would be looking at too. So are we really saving money is what I'm looking at.
So Ken, I want to say thank you for coming up and doing your presentation, because you do it much better yourself than anybody else can.
Yeah.
You really can speak for your department much better. Hey, we've all been there.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what we need to find out.
I'll
And
get better
you
at
do
it.
an excellent job.
I'll
You
get
know,
better at
you speak good for your department, and it educates us, so thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question, Ken?
You got 3 minutes.
We were talking about not hiring a part-time person, okay, and using the people that you presently have. And according to what you're saying right there, it's going to be very difficult for you. Instead of hiring a part-time person, perhaps if we could struggle along until we got to next year, could we hire possibly a full-time person in this department? And would that relieve you to be able to cover more?
I'm just saying right now, and from what I know and what I've had feedback from residents and everything else, they're pleased with what we're doing, and we're progressing, we're keeping things going, but it's, like, again, I was saying, taking on more stuff that we're
expanding.
You know, that, and I know it's not out of the general budget or whatever, but it's, saving money on projects, you know, and being able to do more and to do more stuff around the parks.
Do you think it would benefit you on the new budget that if you tried to get another full-time person?
I'll do like you guys say, I'd consider it. I would like to look into it, and I don't just sit back there.
You listen to it.
I listen.
No, I realize what you do, okay, I really do. My wife and I run maintenance companies, and we know.
Yeah.
And we know that it takes personnel. And that's why I was saying earlier about doing it with the people that we got, so when we get somebody, we can put them into that position, and we know where we're using them and how we're using them.
Right.
And that's what I was saying is are we going to have to budget, you know, someone in your budget, another employee? You said earlier about wherever you worked that you had 6 people just for the.
No, I was checking with the town of Bel Air today.
Mhm.
They have 6 people just doing streets and parks.
Yeah. So, you know, I understand your problem. But in order to do these kinds of things, you know, to take care of the projects, somebody has to pay for it, okay? I don't think that we can take it out of Pete's check. I don't think he'd be too happy about that. You know?
I wouldn't be happy.
You wouldn't be happy either? So in order to do so, we're going to have to have an increase in the budget. And if we have an increase in the budget, where are we going to get the money for that? You know?
On my end of
He's going to donate it. I saw him raise his hand.
What I'm looking at is, you know, if you guys are gonna require more things to be done, you know.
Require more animals?
Is making it happen.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And so we wanna make it happen. You know what I mean? We wanna
Can I ask you about the coverage of the park that we're talking about? Do you feel as though that's necessary? 7 days a week?
For us, it's the bathroom and the rental facilities throughout the city. Just want to put it in the proper context.
Yeah, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry, remember, this would not just be, what I was talking about was not just for, the recreation that we were talking about. It would be the rental of this, Schleck Park, our pavilions, cleaning bathrooms. So again, quite a few different things.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ken. You did a good job. Where are we at now?
I don't have anything.
That was good data, we asked for data.
Right? Asking each other.
No, that was excellent.
All right, let's move along here. Are we done with summary reports of the town manager here? Number 3, are we ready to go
Long time ago,
to?
sir, we're on town clerk now.
Pardon
I said long time ago, we're now on town clerk, the officers report.
me?
I'm good.
You're good? Okay, she's good. What's next?
That'd be my report, Mr. Mayor. The legislative session committees have stopped convening, so bills are now going before the full floor of the Florida House and Florida Senate. The bills that we've been tracking most closely that will affect local government are Senate Bill 280 and Senate Bill 620, both of which are fully expected to pass and were summarized in the legislative update circulated to you. With Senate Bill 620, what it does is it authorizes a business that has been engaged in unlawful business in the town for at least 3 years to claim business damages from a local government if the government enacts or amends any ordinance or charter provision that it believes will cause a reduction of at least 15% of the business's revenue or profit. So choose your own adventure for suing the city. And then additionally, the city will have exposure to attorney's fees in that suit. That is not a reciprocal entitlement. That is just the person suing the town can get attorney's fees. The town will not. Now that would be a very substantial change to the way we look at what our ordinances are that are enacted. It's the reason I sort of pair them together is it's somewhat of a companion. Senate Bill 280 separately requires that as we adopt ordinances, which up until now has been subject solely to a fairly debatable standard, meaning is it fairly debatable that there's a rational basis for adopting this? The standard will change, but in addition to changing the standard, we will have to now make findings of the economic and business impacts of anticipated economic and business impact of an adopted ordinance and have all these, it's a list like A through J of findings that we will have to address with each enactment. The challenge for that is, thankfully they've not mandated that we hire some accountant or somebody specifically to do that. However, as smaller towns like this one, it's going to be much harder where you don't have a robust, here's our financial analyst and their 3 team members and the person with the master's degree who has done all these things. And it's not that you need that, but it's difficult to distinguish between conjecture and data, that you're looking at what is speculation as a CYA versus what is the real anticipated economic impact based on tangible data. The other challenge with that is it will certainly slow the ordinance amendment process as to some things. As a result of this ordinance, I have sensitized the manager to some ordinances that we may wish to amend before the effective date of Senate Bill 280. Its effective date being in October, and we've begun preparing some of those amendments and scheduling those to come through. So you may be seeing some of that. Some of those are ones that we've drafted in years past, and we've taken a detour through Chapter 54, COVID, administrative changes and otherwise, and slowed some of their adoption, whether that be a sign code revision, for example, and that's in response to Supreme Court jurisprudence and things of the like. So I'm working with the manager on that. In the past month, my office has been in constant contact with the town manager concerning your solid waste RFP. As you'll remember, your current contract expired at the end of February. However, the vendor, with limited additional premium charge, agreed to extend through May 1 while we work through the RFP process. That vendor may be applying through that process. And so those, as the manager has already stated, those will be open. We prepared the special magistrate RFP, which went out, and you will now work towards memorializing that contract, memorialize the contract with the chief of police, as well as the Acela program you've heard much about. We really, our office did I would say, a very impressive job. Very proud of my colleague, Rob Eschenfelder, in helping them fine tune that document to something that was, one, legally justifiable, and two, better serve the town as far as we get to that process. And that is the product of a piggybacked contract, and there's a lot of restrictions when you're piggybacking a contract, and you want to make sure that you're within the boundaries, one, to avoid bid protests and challenges from other existing parties in the marketplace, but also to ensure that your service is stable, justifiable, and will withstand that defense. So we work very hard with the manager and that vendor in particular. Otherwise, in mid-February, I provided the manager with a comprehensive correspondence identifying all of my recognized action items or anticipated action items, divided in categories by contracts and procurement, code enforcement, legislative matters, to include ordinances and amendments, quasi-judicial matters, and miscellaneous administrative matters. Just last month, we met with the members, some of the members of the Board of Adjustment and Planning and Zoning Board as a refresher course, as they have not convened since before COVID, and it's been a few months before COVID. So we're talking about, I think the last meeting of either of those boards was roughly November 2019. Obviously, they have business to attend to. There are some pending applications, and that was a step towards making that happen. So my office has been engaged. I've been maintaining office hours on average every other week. And some weeks, about 2 weeks ago, I was here for 4 of the 5 business days. So we may continue to collaborate with your clerk and your manager on all these issues, and I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns you may have.
We have one last person that I forgot, and that's the Code Enforcement Officer, David Lyson.
So since the last council meeting, I've spoke with 39 different residents about different ordinances at their homes. I've given out 67 courtesy notices. I've closed 58. I do have a couple courtesy notices that are second time. I've got one that's, they've gotten 3 of them. I've done a stop work order on 2 homes, 1 condo, 1 business. I've handed out an enormous amount of flyers for the March 5th event, and I'm starting to hand out the flyers for the VFW Memorial. Any questions?
So. I have no question. Do you have any questions? No. How are people responding to you?
Most of them are really good. I've got a couple that are definitely fighting back. They've been here so long that they don't understand why all of a sudden there's changes that are happening. So I do get some pushback from a few.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
What's next? Town clerk, we've gone through about everybody. haven't we?
We're finally on mayor and council comments.
Okay. Bonnie?
All right, so Pete's already asked or answered the question for chapter 54. We should get an update next council meeting, and then it should be completed in May, so we'll look forward to that. And so I have a question about the contract for the CPA. And so back on dated 6/7/17, we had for I guess it was the year 17-18, we had basically an agreement that was $4,500 for the services, and there may have been some additionals, but this was the agreement. And currently, the agreement is $5,600 a month, which would be $67,200 annually. And so I guess my question is, how did we get there? And this all comes out of general budget, and that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, this came about before I was here, so, my understanding is that we found out that we needed some, what do you call it, some real, accounting, specialty in accounting. We're gonna be dealing with the ARP, the grants, we're talking, that money, the American Rescue Plan Act and things like that. My understanding and readings through some of the documents and correspondence, going back to Matt Campbell and just city functions in general, was that we were really having a tough time keeping up with, paying bills. We didn't have the expertise at the accounting level, but things like that. Again, this was just a carryover from before I was here.
Given that I may be able to offer a little more context as to how we got here as well, if you'll indulge.
Sure.
The accountant, Mr. Tess and his firm, we entered into a contract with them at the precise time that town manager Campbell and town clerk Mattson had announced their departure. That was following some concerns about payroll issues with the PD and otherwise that were being reviewed and ultimately resolved. Their contract provides in its terms, on its terms, that the services would begin as of March 31st, 2021 and automatically renew annually with a starting monthly contract amount of $5,600 with an annual increase allotment of 3%. That will automatically renew at the end of March, absent direction to the contrary. The reason for the increased cost was the increased scope of services. They were not having daily on-site, or rather weekly on-site presence. I think they're here twice a week now. I'm not sure if that had changed recently. He's on-site twice a week. They're handling your AR, your accounts receivable, accounts payable, payroll. Some of that had been handled in-house, though there were concerns about the diligence with which it had been handled historically, which was why it was a conscious choice of the council at the time to say, let's get this in order, make sure this is handled by a professional CPA, and we won't have those issues. And it has made providing the necessary reconciliation documents a little bit more expedited and the like. And so that was how the scope of service changed substantially from 2017 and how that agreement is presently structured.
Okay, so yeah, I do have that agreement, and I do remember that, is because we didn't have a town clerk at that point. And then, in section 4.02, number 11 states, that an accurate account of all monies due to the town, and all receipts and distribution, I can't even say that today, by the town and the assets and liability and of all appropriations made by the town council. This is a really long run-on sentence, guys, so hang on. Furnish the council with any such report, data, information as may be necessary to fully inform them on financial affairs of the town. Keep regular books of accounts, that's your accounts receivable and accounts payable, in which shall be entered all indebtedness of the town, and which shall, at times, show the financial condition of the town. So this is what is outlined in the town clerk's job description. And so at the time that this contract was done, we did not have a town clerk. She quit. And so Anna, where are you at taking over these job responsibilities that are outlined in your job description?
I would defer your question to Pete, because Pete and I have discussed my job description at length. I've found at least 4 job descriptions for the town clerk in the town documents.
Is that the code?
Right.
If I may, to the extent that was discussed during the recruitment process, one of the issues that we raised was the challenge of finding a clerk with financial expertise in the modern clerk landscape. And that was one of the challenges in finding candidates to begin with. And one of the things we when we discussed this, as it was explained in our recruitment documents and otherwise, was that while that is a duty that is interpreted to mean keeping those documents and ensuring those documents are secured and will be produced upon request, it does not necessarily, by its plain terms, mean that that person has to generate the report, calculate the report, and or refrain from delegating any of that. While she is certainly responsible, should you request that record be provided, that the clerk provide that, but that was, when the council was recruiting its clerk, that was one of the ways that we had communicated that to candidates. And so for what it's worth, that context appears to be relevant to this discourse.
Okay, so maybe I or maybe I didn't frame my question properly, because I understand what our, we said that the person didn't have to be up to date. It's how we've hired most of the people since they've come in. They have transferable skills. They certainly have the capability of learning and things. So again, my question is, on your, where are you at learning how to do these things? Because, so for instance, our payroll, we have a new payroll system, very simple, it basically does it itself. It probably just has some kind of approval protocol. And
so I oversee payroll. I've never been given the directive to take over accounting for the town. I've made it very clear that that's not my wheelhouse. I've never been an accountant, so that's not anything that I've ever pretended to be.
So my concern with this is have somebody's job description outlined and they're not apparently working towards becoming
a CPA,
capable of doing this job, and so we're double paying. And again, I'm looking out for our general accounts. So if we're paying a CPA to do general basic accounting, we're paying a lot of money to do that. And so, I'm kind of like, how are we gonna fix this? Because to me, we're double paying now.
Let me tell you how I think we got in this position. When we didn't have a city clerk, and Heather, I believe was her name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Heather sat in the office as our city clerk and as our finance person. And everything that she did in there, she separated city clerk, finance, and she separated everything. I know she did. She showed it to me. And that's how we went from $4,000 or $5,000 to $60-something thousand, is because she took the things and separated them and pulled them out and put them over into the accounting and took them away from the city clerk's job. So that when they did that, now we're responsible to pay them to do those jobs. As far as your question, I don't have an answer for that, okay? But I will tell you how we got there, because I saw it with my own two eyes, what was going on. You weren't here, you didn't have anything to do with it, and I don't believe you were in there doing anything with it. But do you know what I'm talking about, Randy?
Sir, I know what you're talking about, yes, Mr. Mayor, and I think that was a function of the personnel we had in place at the time.
Exactly.
Not just Heather, but the way that we operated at the time. We did have Ms. Rodriguez Jocelyn, who was serving as the clerk at the time, and so there was, that specialization was a function of it, and it was understood that Jocelyn was in a position to handle record keeping, record responses, preparation of minutes, agendas, but would not be touching the finances. And so that wasn't so much a artifice created by Ms. Guadagnoli as much as it was the division of labor based on the personnel in place at the time.
Okay, you're correct. But that's how we got to where we are today.
Correct. It was created
Yes.
based on circumstance.
Now, I guess going back to your question would be, how do we reverse that cycle and go back to the way that we were before?
Because a lot of that was kind of temporary at the time.
Yes.
For the most part, to get us through a tough time.
So they charge us $5,600 a month. Can you tell me, like, do they provide statements of like how many hours on average they work for us a week?
They work 2 days a week for us, and again, he's actually done a lot of things outside of his scope, again, just giving us financial information and guidance on ARP and things like that. But, yes, no, he's not a, he's not a employee with a time in and a time out.
No, I was just curious. I'm just trying to think of like, cause I'm doing.
Well, basically, just like Ken was saying, he's trying to do things in-house so that we're not paying other people to do it. And basically, that's what we are doing financially right now, is we're paying outhouse, but it should be done in-house. Is that what you're not saying?
Pretty much. Well, to me, we're paying twice.
But also, I mean, say we even hired an accountant, like, it would
We
be
already
cheaper than $67,000 if we just had an accountant come into town hall for 2 days a week, if that's what it takes, 2 days a week to get the job on a part-time employee. I mean,
We could definitely.
right, if, I feel like I remember that during the interviews and everything, and I remember the issue with the applicants was because we couldn't find someone with the accounting and the clerical, like, experience together, I do recall that. So, I mean, $5,600 a month for 2 days a week, I mean, like, whoo, please, that would be incredible. I just personally feel like we could find a part-time accountant to come work for us, maybe even more than 2 days a week, and it would still be half price.
And you certainly have options, whether it's RFP, finding an FTE to be a director of finance, or whatever it is you wish to, you have options. You're not bound to.
This contract comes due in March, correct?
The contract comes due at the end of the month, and let me, while we continue to discuss it, I'll pull up its terms so I can speak to its termination and extension clauses.
Right. So I'm just saying, like, I don't feel like Anna should learn and expand, like she said, that's not in her wheelhouse, and we were well aware of all of that when interviewing and hiring and looking at applicants and understanding why we weren't receiving very many applicants.
But the
because that was all part of
presumption
it.
also was that they would become a certified town clerk, and that is a town clerk's responsibility.
Not traditionally within the.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say.
A certified, just to clarify, a certified clerk doesn't ordinarily involve any kind of, accounting training, that CNC coursework doesn't go into.
And just for the record, I am working on becoming a certified municipal clerk. Yeah.
Are you taking accounting courses when you're doing that?
They don't offer that in the
They don't offer
curriculum.
that?
Mm-mm.
Just asking.
Right, because I have family who like manage both, right, and like their accounting and their, city clerk, they're, very totally separate. So I personally would like to, let's end those services hopefully by March, or maybe just extend like 1 month if we absolutely must, but I would prefer to try to find an accountant to just work for us that comes in town hall, like the 2 days a week
An employee. You're looking
yeah,
for an employee.
well, yeah, a part-time employee.
Is it?
Yeah, a part-time accountant.
Well, and
We
then
should hire.
as before, we had our CPA, so back when they were doing 4,500, they had oversight. They were supposed to be looking over our information. They
Just
were supposed to
assisting.
be the CPAs.
Just assisting, not.
Well, yeah, but oversight, but that's how we got into a huge mess that cost the town thousands of dollars because they didn't catch the errors that the employees made. And so I think we can do better, is kind of my point.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying hire some Joe Schmo off the street, I'm saying hire a certified CPA to work part-time for our town, so.
By its terms, by its terms, it says that the agreement, if it is, I read it, that it would, I already read it into the record, it's term on extension. But as it relates to termination, it provides the agreement would be terminated with 60 days written notice by either party. And that's in part because you're talking about transition. You don't want your financials on one.
Well, sure, well, yeah,
So
right.
it's a contemplated downshift of 60 days notice is what it would require if you wish to terminate the agreement. That's how that would function.
Our agreement went from how much a year?
From 45.
4,500.
A year.
To 67,000.
To 67,000
Yeah.
a year.
Yes.
You could hire, if we could save some of that money, you could hire someone else to work on the DPW.
Great, if you hired a CPA, you could afford the little recreation assistant that you want, like, and then some.
I mean, does that not make common sense?
Well, we can go, if you want, we can go into an RFP for, their services and see what comes through.
Yes.
Honestly, we don't know what the waters are gonna hold until we actually
I mean,
get into it.
that company may turn around and say, well, yeah, we can lower our fees and do this and this and this for you.
Starting Monday, we have an appointment to start discussing that, but
I
now
still
I'm
don't
hearing
think
I'm
we'll
getting
be in our
different, now I'm hearing different direction where I need to start eliminating or terminating that contract.
Yes.
Well, we need a well-defined scope of work, first of all, for what the accountant needs to do.
There is a defined scope of services enumerated and bulleted within the contract on what their scope of services is.
I would love to go over.
How much?
But how much time does it take for such a small, I mean, I know there's a lot, there's employees and stuff, but we're not huge, I mean.
And again, remember that there is American Rescue Plan Act and a bunch of other reporting that's gonna have to get done. It's not huge, but it is a component, that's all.
I have a quick question, and we need to get this thing finished up tonight. How much are we paying the street sweepers to sweep our streets in the town of Kenneth City?
What do they charge, about $250?
Hang on, I got it.
It's $781, I think, $781, it's like 1426 or something.
I'm not following you.
1426 a month?
A year?
No.
Like, what are these numbers?
It's not gonna come every quarter.
So quarterly, 1426 quarterly?
We just paid those, 1426 or something for 2 times.
For two
So
times?
Yeah, so it's 7,
And how many times a year do they do it?
third quarter.
They do what?
I'll have to check.
4 times, sir.
Yeah.
4 times a year?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're here more than 4
Yeah,
times a year.
it's, about every 3 months. We just paid a
Maybe it is every 3 months or something.
That's common with FPDS for.
And what's the total bill on that then?
like $781, I think, each time.
$781.
So it's about 1,900 for the year, if they come 4 times.
Yeah, about that, yeah.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, I think just under 2,000.
Yeah, like we said, yeah, I think so, yeah. I mean, 1852.
But so anyway, I just had one last thing, and I'll go through it really quick, if you can take notes and get back to us in the next, so one was a street sweeper, we have a contract for that, can we redo it, look into it, or something? Our street sweeper is interesting.
They do a miserable job.
Well, that-
I'm just
yeah.
miserable.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I'll do
interesting concept there.
Yeah, and that is something that we have to do, and we have to report on every year, for the National Community Discharge Elimination System.
We'll give them an F.
No, I'm talking about the EPA and the FDP look at us. I don't want them to give us.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So that's a requirement for us,
That is
right?
correct.
It is a requirement, I do know
And it's part
that.
of the Clean Water Act is the.
Pete, is it a requirement that we have it done, or is it a requirement that it is done?
Oh, that is done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we had our own equipment, we could save some money then. Give Ken a little something to do.
He was just saying.
So.
But just help you out, kid.
You might get that part-time person.
So, and for our preparation, go ahead, Ken.
I just pulled up the invoice that, they swept on 11/26, it's 7/18, and then they swept again on 1/31. It's 7/18/88
Every other month.
each time, so.
Every
Yeah.
6 months.
Now it's,
You said 11/26, 7/18.
it'd be every 2 months.
Every 2 months.
I just don't have to hear the right date, but.
Yeah.
I just think, Pete, we need to look into that.
And, and that's a company that does several municipalities in Pinellas County, so.
It's a complete.
USA Services.
Oh, yeah, he's not for years.
Okay, are you got something to say to finish this up?
Uh-huh. So again, with our, looking into our budget, getting ready for our budget, I don't think since I can't even I don't even know the last time. I don't even think since we've had a town manager that, we have gone out and looked for, our health insurance choices for our employees. You know, we've just always stuck with the same person and it just goes up every year and we don't shop that around. And, you know, how can we, are there different choices that we can get?
My understanding is through the global health, I forget what they call it, partnership or whatever, through PRM.
Yep.
You have to have at least 1 year, lead time before switching.
So we should start doing that.
Of course.
Yeah. So then also, since again, the money that you keep talking about, I looked up and we probably pay like, again, looking at our general fund, we probably pay like, at least $30,000 a year for electric for these three buildings, our three buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was throwing it out, maybe we could look at solar, use some of our money to get solar on the buildings. That would be the gift that does not keep costing. You know, we could, their solar panels are.
Are you referring to the COVID money that we're?
Yes, yeah, because solar panels are warranted for 25 years and so are the inverters.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could, you know, take the $30,000, there's Ken's help.
No, I've expressed an interest for this town to go green.
Well, if it's COVID money, then it's basically.
Oh yeah, we use the COVID money and we take $30,000 out of our general fund that we're paying for electric to do. You know, so to me, that's a win-win. We got $30,000 more dollars because we have all talked about reducing, you know, our general fund. And that would be a way to do that.
Saving money anyway.
Well, if we can save money here, it's not like we're going to try to save the money and not spend it. We're just going to reallocate it to over here.
Oh, sure.
You know, to the DPW, to the police department.
Yeah.
You know, the things that make our town operate is what we have to fund.
Right.
And we gotta quit funding all this other stuff.
Frivolous stuff,
Yes,
yeah.
and get it to where Ken needs more help, get him more help. You know, that's the name of the game.
Oh, I agree. Keep our good employees.
Mhm.
I think we made the effort at the beginning of this
Yes,
budget
ma'am.
to increase our employees to a fair wage. We made that a big thing that we've done, you know, and I believe in keeping our employees. Turnover is very expensive.
Yes, it is.
And then I guess the last thing is, our contracts. So you're doing that, right, Pete?
Which contract?
All our contracts.
Oh, yeah, I just mentioned that,
Yeah.
that we talked about legal, engineering, and finance.
Computer. BCR.
My email with the manager as it related to procurement and contracts raised solid waste, special magistrate, chief of police, Acela, the accountant, the attorney, advanced engineering and design, BCR, and the planning services, which those were some of the identified contracts that we've begun looking at, all in different stages of the process relative to their tenure and terms of effective dates and termination. But those are the ones that I had sensitized the manager to, and there may be others, but those were the ones that he and I had discussed. The issue with procurement, which is getting services as a government entity, as Member Cummings will surely be aware of, is the bid process can be exhausting for one, but it's not quick. And really, depending on the services you're seeking, the solid waste one, for example, we issued that, then we had to extend the deadlines, and then there were additional 5 addenda to answer all the random questions. So we ended finally with 7 addenda to that RFP, and especially because we were doing it on a truncated timeline, we got this new list of 10 questions, and we have to have that out in 24 hours. And so running at your size and staffing, running multiple concurrent RFPs gets very challenging from a staff allocation standpoint. And so, but the manager has spoken with me about each of the agreements that I mentioned by name, and there is an awareness of when their terms run and what needs to be done.
Yeah, so as long as we're looking at them, because it's something we haven't done, you know, they've just been like auto-renewing forever, you know? And so, to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck for the town.
I have nothing else to say.
What about you?
I don't.
Shut up.
Kyle?
No, I'm good. I agree.
Well then, in that case, I need a motion to adjourn this meeting. One of you, come on.
I'll motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Let's get out of here.
Yes, the residents, aye.
Bye-bye, thank you for coming.